Yeah, go for it.
As a GM, I was
Brian?
Byron.
Byron, sorry.
I was hoping you could shed some light on. I mean, back in 2001, Michael Vick was the #1 overall prospect, number
Yeah.
one quarterback prospect in this draft. And
Yeah.
we're here this week talking about Lamar Jackson as a wide receiver conversion. I'm just curious, do you see that? Is that something that folks are seeing on the tape, or has the league changed?
No, I don't think the league's changed. I think he's just such a crazy athlete. It's just natural when you go in, you go in there and you watch the guy play, or you watch him, you study him. You know, he's just such a natural athlete. That's just going to be something that people are always going to talk about. People are going. I'm not going to get into him specifically, but Michael Vick was obviously a freak. People were comparing him with Drew that year. Two kind of totally different quarterbacks. But this guy's a special talent.
Do you see him as a quarterback more than your receiver?
I don't want to tell you that. No, he could play quarterback.
What's the outlook for Michael Bennett, and are the reports true that he may be on the trading block?
You know what? That's a great question. I was reading about that last night. We don't get into people's contracts, but I understand why that's out there. It's this time of the year. This has really developed the combine's really developed into a lot more of the kind of like the. I have a couple friends in baseball, right? Kind of like the baseball meetings. So I mean, I've been here since Monday night, and I've literally been in meetings like the whole time, whether it's league meetings, committee meetings. We met with the NCAA yesterday. We're just constantly talking to people all the time. Part of our challenge right now is, I don't know how to say this appropriately, is sustaining our level of success that we've had, and we're just open to anything.
Are there any untouchables?
Not at this time of the year, you know what I mean? It's just it's not, because you don't want to be. I told you guys this, when we got here in 2010. We're gonna be in every deal, and then you want to be able to walk away. You don't want to be, you don't want to have the opportunity to. You don't want to miss any opportunity, and that's how we built this thing, and that's how we're gonna continue to build it. Now, do we have some challenges this year? Absolutely, but I mean, we're not, we're pretty disappointed the way the season ended. We went 9-7, and you would have thought that we we won 2 games. It's a pit that sits in your stomach and really fuels you, and we're excited about the challenges ahead, because we want to, we feel like we want to get rolling on this thing.
John, what do you look at as like the biggest thing you guys got to do to get back to that?
We look at it as everything. Really, I mean, you guys have seen us operate. Like we're not afraid of anything. I mean, we're gonna get after it in every nook and cranny we possibly can.
The coaching changes that you guys made, does that change at all how you assess the draft and kind of the personnel going forward? I mean, is there some...
Sure, because with Mike coming in, I've worked with Mike in Kansas City before. You have to try to fit specific talents and personalities with that coach.
There's some GMs that said that they prefer to wait until kind of the middle rounds to draft specifically for coordinators. Do you have kind of a thought on that?
For who?
Like they'll take the best available players early, but then in the middle rounds draft players specifically to fit their coordinators' needs.
Yeah, no, that's just. I mean, everybody has their own approach. It's a cool question. It's just we try to take good players all the way through. Right now, we're sitting here specifically without a 2 and a 3, which is a really fun challenge for us. Like, all right, how do we figure out how to compensate for those openings?
John, what are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield, and do you think the comparison to Russell Wilson are warranted?
Okay, how I can answer that is that I think he's a really confident, talented kid. I don't. Guys that haven't. I don't think it's fair to either one of those guys to compare them, and I personally don't want to do that here, just because I would like to keep that evaluation to myself. After the draft, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to you about it. I hope you can appreciate that, just as a competition thing,
It was obviously natural that your name came up for the Packers job. Was there any interest on your end, and was there any conversation, either officially, unofficially, between you and the team?
No, it's. I mean, I was born in De Pere, Wisconsin. I was raised right there. My wife and I and the boys love it. In Seattle, we've created a high standard there, and that's the fun challenge of where we're at right now. Personally, excuse me, we love it. My oldest son is 16 now. Ben has autism. We've created Ben's Fund to help families afford treatments for autism that can't necessarily afford it, and it's a huge passion for us. And in the city of the Seattle area and the Northwest has really embraced everything that we wanted to do. And so I understood what was going on. It's a natural and it's fun to talk about. That stuff happens at the end of the year all the time. But no, we love where we're at, and we're jacked about what's going on.
Obviously, Brian. Any memories?
Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Brian.
Any memories of Brian? How do you think he's going to do?
He's going to do great. Yeah, he's going to do great. He was fun. He had interned with the Packers when I was in Green Bay, and then we were able to hire him in Kansas City. So there were 3 of us that worked in the pro personnel department there, and he was one of them, and we had a blast. So, and then he was there for 2 years, I believe, and then went back to work with Ron and Ted and Dorsey and those guys. Reg was still there.
John, what was sort of your first impression of Brian?
Who, Brian?
Yeah.
Just a really well-rounded football guy. He had coached. His dad was a longtime coach. I didn't really know his dad, but Brian was. I think he was the head coach of the JV team at lacrosse. So he had a really cool mix, kind of that how New England does it with their scouts that coach and that sort of thing. So that was really attractive to us to get him into our building in Kansas City with Coach Schottenheimer and Terry Bradway and Carl Peterson. So to have him in that mix with us was really fun.
Did you see any of Jimmy Garoppolo down there? Any early impressions of him?
Yeah, he looked great. Yeah, he looked phenomenal.
John, is there?
Just kind of bummed out they got him.
You mentioned the second and third round picks. How much is that covering everything you're doing right now?
How does it? I'm sorry.
How does it cover? How does it affect everything you're doing as far as talking to teams, drafting?
Yeah, it affects it. But see, we got ourselves in this position because Malik had his situation this past summer, so we're really looking for a 3 technique. So we added Sheldon, and then obviously we've been trying to work on our offensive line ever since we've been here, and we had been working with Houston, probably the day after George went down with his ACL situation. So that was really. Something we really felt like we needed to do. We went in training camp thinking we were a damn good football team, and didn't see ourselves going 9-7. So we went for it, and we always will. So it's kind of a fun challenge now. We love it. Let's go for it. How do we compensate for that?
Johnny, what is Sheldon's Richardson's situation?
He's an unrestricted free agent. Yeah.
What talks have you had about
About possibly re-signing him? We'd love to re-sign him. Specifically, you want me to talk about how he? Yeah, that'd be great. Well, we met with his guys last night, and we actually did meet with his guys last night.
Same answer for Jimmy Graham and Paul Richardson.
Yeah, we want all these guys back, and it's like this constant puzzle. I'm sure you're probably tired. I'm going last, I think. Am I the last guy, Dave?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Obviously, we're not drafting any offensive linemen, right? No. It's just a constant puzzle. I know you guys probably get tired of hearing that, but it's this constant puzzle. You're trying to put stuff together all the time, and it's a big challenge. Now, the cool thing we have going for us is March 14th is when we can kind of get back. We're going to get back into the office, recalibrate. After studying this whole weekend and listening to everything we're listening to, sit down and make some sound decisions. Pete and I have a lot to discuss.
John, with Sheldon, how much do you think he was impacted by the switch defensive schemes from New York to Seattle?
I think early on, it took him a little while to get settled, but he's three technique. He can play several different positions. He's a talented guy, and I think it just took him a little while to get. I'd say 2 weeks. That's about it. Guy's a competitor, yeah, he affects things.
John, with your offensive line, is there something you're looking at specifically to try to get that back to? And then with the running game, Pete's talked a lot about trying to kind of get back to where you guys were a couple years ago with all that.
Yeah, I would say coaches talk about a mentality, so you listen to that and you try to, find those guys that can accentuate, exactly what coaches are looking at. We're you gotta understand it's the offensive line right now is like, it's in football, period. It's a very hard situation. Some of the NBA guys I talk to, it's like, they talk about finding bigs. Where are the bigs at? And I think that's very similar to the trend we're in right now in the National Football League with all the spread offenses and guys being recruited when they're like in 8th grade. Kind of like Dave was. Recruited like as a 7th grader and stuff, and they're like, okay, you want to play defensive line or offensive line? You want to do a sack dance, or do you want to like make a great block in the run game? What are you going to do, right? So.
With so many quarterbacks coming from a version of the spread, what's the future of the traditional pro style passing?
Great question. I don't know where it's headed. Obviously we're in a transition period right now. It's like a constant study, of what we're doing. Like how are we envisioning this thing in the future? And you still have to have, the games are so short in the National Football League. You still have to have that physicality, and it's so much of a compared to college football, it's so much more situational football. I've talked to a coach that's been in the National Football League, head coach in the National Football League, head coach in college football, and was happy to get back into college football because he's like, the NFL is just such situational football all the time. That's all you're studying. You can't just go call plays and let it rip, and that's what he was most relieved about. Now it totally makes sense, and we're looking for that. And even with personnel, I mean, we're like, okay, this guy can, has a niche to do this. This guy's got a niche to do that. The games are so small, you still have to have that physicality to run the ball and chow clock when you can.
John, in this year transition, a lot of changes in your coaching staff, taking the roster not far away from the Super Bowl win. Is there a period in your career where you can think of? I go back to that area because we kept from having fractures. There wasn't infighting.
Fractures, yeah.
It kept this thing together.
Yeah.
Back to the next level. How do you describe that period right now for yourself?
It's a fun challenge. It's like a reset. Okay, how did we get here, right? Like we got here, drafting players and putting them out on the field, and I think it's been hard over our last several drafts for. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, we haven't made some great decisions. Like the best decisions we could possibly make in the draft in certain situations. I don't think anybody does, but it's been hard for these guys to get out there, especially on defense, because we put guys out there right away that were young football players. Look, Earl played right away. Sherman played right away. Maxie would have played right away. If he hadn't got injured right away. Bobby played right away. KJ, these guys went and here we go, right? And so it's kind of a challenge and mindset to get back to doing that. Like, let's go. Let's put these guys out there. Pete and I talk about it all the time. Like, nobody's talking about Delano or Thompson. I mean, these are guys that like those are good football players. And we took those guys, higher. No disrespect to the guys we've drafted in the past, but it's been hard for those guys to get out there. And you're getting to a point where we're interviewing these guys at the combine, or you're at the school interviewing these guys, and they're thinking to themselves like, "Wow, I get to play with Cam Chancellor." No, you get to compete with Cam Chancellor. That's the mindset we got to get back to. They're a little bit in awe. You know what I mean? They're they were in 8th grade.
So many rookie running backs have come in the last couple of years and made a huge impact.
Yeah.
I'm curious why that is, beyond them being good players, obviously. How are they able to transition so well?
We've always talked about like the one position that you can go out there and just let it rip, and that's at running back. So if you have a staff that's willing to play young players, then that's a position you can do it. And there's guys like that are just like last year. If you interviewed Kamara, like real smart kid, like you knew he could play in the passing game and the running game, right? Knowing pass protection. If they can study pass protection and get that down, you can put them out there.
Pendulum is swinging all back in terms of the way salary cap, a lot of them, high draft picks are a lot of them after there weren't any first rounders for you.
Yeah, but there's always swings, right? Like there's always these like swings of players that sometimes you're gonna have like a bunch of linebackers. Sometimes you're gonna have a bunch of corners on your board. The last several years now, there's been some damn good runners.
We've also seen some of the wide receivers who've been taken early struggle in their first couple of years.
It's hard.
Across the league.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything behind that? We talked about the changing offenses. Have you seen anything behind that?
Yeah, it's hard. They don't know how to run routes. That's why we went with Amara last year. He'd been playing in Michigan. He knew how to run routes, but even still, he's got a huge learning curve. So take the guy that isn't necessarily running routes, right? I mean, they have to, and the coaches don't have anywhere near as much time as they used to have with those players. So it's very hard for them to come in, and it's not necessarily the kid's fault. It's not anybody's fault. You have very, very creative college coaches. Look at the guys that are kicking butt, right? There aren't a lot of guys that are just running pro schemes and then they just come in and play. It's a transition that we were talking. He's talking about over here. Like where are we going in football, right?
Where is Amara in that learning curve?
Much better towards the end of the season. Like any rookie, he started out strong. Had a little dip. He was a little injured. Struggled with his confidence to a certain extent, and then I think he finished strong, and so did David.
John, last year, Chicago signed the #1 free agent quarterback and also took the top quarterback in the draft. I thought that was similar to what you guys did in 2012, where you signed the top free agent quarterback.
Yeah, with Matt and Tavares. Yeah.
Was that a specific plan that you said, all right, let's get 2 and one of them will work out, or was that it just happened to fall that way?
No, it's just the emphasis of the position. It's the most important position on the football field. The head coach and your quarterback are the 2 most important people in the building, and so you have to have, as much as you possibly can, you have to have competition at that position, and it's not like even in the draft we haven't been concentrating on quarterbacks. It's just a matter of where you place them and where they fall.
Because it's sort of swing and miss with quarterbacks, is it going forward? Is that something you'd want to do? Get 2 because one of them probably is going to work out, one will.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my hope personally is that we can have, in some form or fashion, a developmental league or more time with the quarterbacks as we move forward, because those guys have to have more time to develop and study and take reps. And I mean, it was pretty cool when we were a little bit of a different league when we had NFL Europe. You had the Kurt Warners and the Brad Johnsons and the Mark Bulgers and J.T. O'Sullivans, and I'm missing somebody, but you know what I'm saying.
What type of coach, type of guy are the Cowboys getting? Chris Richard, obviously, guys.
Chris, very, very confident, tough. Knows exactly what he wants, and can articulate his thoughts in a clear, concise fashion, and they're getting a good coach. Sorry. His value is, I can't tell you who, but I had somebody tell me that they had met John Wooden before, and the inspiration they got sitting down with John Wooden for 5 minutes was the same feeling they got from him. I haven't been able to do that personally yet, so I'm pretty excited about that. But he's a special dude, and I say that because he was at our Jacksonville game, I think, and everybody was made a big effort to make sure that I just didn't bump into him, to violate any National Football League rules. So we'll be sitting down with him this week.
Do you think Russell's success has opened up the opportunity for shorter stature quarterbacks to be drafted in the first round?
Well, I'm a fan of short guys. Yeah, I do. I think, quite frankly, Doug Flutie and Drew Brees, there's guys, Jeff Blake, there's guys that did special things that you could kind of see if they had that special quality about them, that they would be able to, if they could accentuate their strengths and figure out how to compensate for their deficiencies enough, that they'd be able to make it. with Russell, it was same thing with Drew. It was like, okay, go through and check all your boxes of what you like in a quarterback, and the only thing that showed up with him was lack of height. And I think he's proven that. But it's easier for now for guys. Russell's going to make it easier for other people, but for us in particular, studying Russell, it was more about Drew, studying Jeff Blake, those guys.
All the coaching changes that you guys made, why did you feel like that big of an overhaul was necessary? Was it just beyond the individual decisions? Was there a bigger picture sort of motivation?
Yeah, look, it's hard. I mean, it's not. That's not fun. It's just part of our business. These guys are all really, really good people, and they all work their tails off, and we've accomplished a lot of great things together. Pete and I we talk about a lot of things together. We talk about everything together all the time, and it just seemed like it was time. Not because any one of those coaches can't do something. It's more about like a specific trait. It's more about, okay, how do we move forward into a next level.
When you're evaluating quarterbacks, how much weight do you put on throwing it to somebody?
A lot, yeah, a lot. It's hard for them because they've had a long week, so you have to take all those things into consideration. They're throwing on air, just it's kind of a weird deal for them. I think they're all much more confident, getting back to their school, sleeping in their own bed, hanging out with their families or girlfriends or whatever, and then coming here or throwing with the receivers that they know they've been hanging out with. They get in a line here and we've been doing it for years, but it's difficult for them, but it gives us a great evaluation. They just get in line and they just throw to different receivers who run, might cut a route off like two yards early or something like that. So they're constantly trying to adjust and on the fly. So it's a cool evaluation, but it's just part of the evaluation.
How's your new line coach, John? How does your new line coach change how you're scouting?
Not a lot, because it's just there's only a certain group of offensive linemen that we can get. Mike is much like Tom's a very open-minded guy. So if we want to, again, try to find that one person like a J.R. Sweezy where we can try to, I'm not saying specifically a defensive lineman, but somebody where we can try to accentuate those strengths, and we feel like those two personalities can work together, we'll definitely go for that. It's the same thing with Tom. Tom was very strong in that regard. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking about that. Yeah.
How do you think history will judge kind of his run during that 12, 13 years where he was on the
Enormous, just because, he's a special guy, and he did it his own way. His personality, his just quiet, ethical, great character, high character. So. We miss him down here, No, thanks for asking about that. Nick Vanette's doing great. He finished the season strong. Ohio State, so he had that natural. This is how you be a pro, and he needs to be continuing to work on those things, to gain the trust of the coaching staff so they can put him out there.
You put your roster together and you put resources in on players, you do picks and cap space and money. Do you ever say, I don't know if we can go here again because we already have this spot where we've got a lot of money, kind of now and in the future?
That's an awesome question. Look, there's a reason, the NFL is great. Parity, there's a reason there's parity in the NFL. There's a reason that some teams have a lot more cap room than other teams. There's a reason, teams are picking high, and you don't want to be in that spot. We talk about being a consistent championship caliber football team all the time, pushing the envelope, and it should not affect. You want to be keeping, to answer your question specifically, you want to be keeping your best players, right? But you can't you can't just pass on people if you think they can come in and help you, even though you do have somebody at a specific position.
Does it raise any red flags to you that a prospect like Lamar Jackson is being represented by his mom?
No, not really. I mean, it's different, but I mean, I've dealt with Russell Okung, and Sherm's his own agent, the last 2 years, which is, I mean, I'm not. If he was standing right here, we'd be talking about it too. It's really weird. I'm like, how's your agent doing? So tell your agent I want to see him in 15 minutes. Tell him to get his butt up to my office. You know what I mean? No, it's just a unique process.
Anything to add to Pete's scouting report on Russell as a hitter?
Russell, I'm not. I don't really. I'm sure he's competing his butt off.
Thank you.
Have I heard from the Yankees? No, I talked to the Rangers. I know I have a relationship with John Daniels, and so he let me know what was going on with the Yankees, so I kind of got a scoop there. But I don't know Brian Cashman personally or anything. But yeah, I know Russell was pretty excited about going out there and doing his thing. He's gonna. I mean, he'd tackle you right here if he could. You know what I mean? So.
It was a little tongue-in-cheek, but they had mentioned the idea of debuting him and let him play in the game. What would your reaction be?
In a situation like situational like at bat or something like that. I mean, that's not, especially in their I can't think of the word right now. Sorry, their training camp or their spring training. Sorry, yeah. I mean, it's not. He has a dream, and as a kid he always wanted to play for the Yankees, and so he's hanging out with those guys. So, and I'm not sure if there's a relationship with Boone. There's some sort of relationship there too. So.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. See you guys.